you wanted the best, you've got the best podcast. The hottest podcast in the world. The Chris Voss Show, the preeminent podcast with guests so smart you may experience serious brain bleed. The CEOs, authors, thought leaders, visionaries, and motivators. Get ready. Strap yourself in. Keep your hands, arms, and legs inside the vehicle at all times, because you're about to go on a monster education roller coaster with your brain. Now, here's your host, Chris Voss.
This is Voss here from TheChrisVossShow.com. Ladies and gentlemen, the Eileen Walker that makes official welcome to 60 years and 28 episodes of the Chris Voss Show. We're bringing your most amazing minds, most amazing journeys and stories of life that uplift your life and make your life better. If you want your life to be worse, you're going to have to find a different podcast for that. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Facebook.com/Chris Voss, and YouTube.com/Chris Voss. All those crazy places on the internet.
Opinions expressed by guests on the podcast are solely their own and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the host or the Chris Voss Show. Some guests of the show may be advertising on the podcast, but it is not an endorsement or review of any kind.
Today, an amazing young lady on the show. We're going to be talking about her books and some of the wonderful things she talks about in the area of family, as it were. Her book is entitled "What Do You Call Your Grandparents?" by Eileen E.J. Walker. We're going to get into that and several other books that she has and find out more about what she's been up to and what she's got coming in the future. Eileen Walker has launched into the world of writing children's books quickly with her third book in a series. The book was initially intended to be her first, although writing has been in the recesses of her mind for many years. It wasn't until she became a grandmother she was inspired to write children's books. She hopes you and the children you read with will enjoy learning what to call family members in other languages. Welcome to the show. How are you, Eileen?
Excellent. Thank you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, and thank you for coming. Give us a .com's website, social media. Where do you want people to get to know you better on the internet?
We have a website set up under my name, eileenejwalker.com. It'll have some more information about me personally, and also we do have Instagram and Facebook as well.
So give us a 30,000 overview. What's inside this book?
The book, What Do You Call Your Grandparents?, was inspired by, as I indicated, when I became a grandmother, and my daughter looked at me and said, okay, so what are we going to have the child call you? And so I started becoming a little bit more aware of the names that people use. And so oftentimes you refer back to what it was that you might have called your grandparents. Personally, I never had any grandparents, so it was a new thought for me. And then I started listening really carefully and noted even in my own community, in the neighborhood, I'm hearing different names like Yaya and Papu and Nana and Nono. And that's what really inspired me to think about, what do you want to be called?
Yeah, I remember someone was calling their grandparents a Nana, and I was like, what the hell's a Nana? Is that like banana? Short for Nana? You're saving a lot of time cutting out the B and A of banana. But no, that's my grandparents. And I'm like, yeah, there's a million different variations of what you could call someone you love or your grandparents.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of it is dictated by multicultural and cultural. Where did you come from, and where did your ancestry come from? And so you do look to what you would have called grandparents. And here in Canada or North America, we often use mommy or grandma, daddy when we're talking about the parents. And grandparents sometimes are the moms and dads for some of the family, and what do you want to be called? And so when I started thinking about that, my daughter has family from the other side in terms of her husband's parents who are still with us, and they chose to use grandma and grandpa. So then I thought, I would have wanted to be called grandma, grandpa. So then it becomes confusing for the children in terms of, well, we've got two sets of grandmas and grandpas. So I ended up settling on Grammy because my name starts with an E. So rather than be called Grandma E or Grandma Eileen, which didn't sit well with me, I thought, let's just go with Grammy while they're young, and then as they get older, they'll just drop that, and just Gram will be what comes out of that. So, That's all I ended up with Grammy.
Sounds like this is a guide, too, for grandparents on how to make sure you're called what you want to be called. Mm-hmm. Maybe I need to write a book like this because most people refer to me in 4-letter expletives. I need to figure out a way to program that better first.
If you don't choose and make a decision gets made for you. And that's an example of that, right?
I like how you're getting ahead of this. You've thought this through. You're like, I'm not gonna let them make up their own names on me. I'm gonna control the process. And yeah, that's smart. Do you get into other languages and stuff, and all the variations of different names grandparents are called around the world?
Yes. What I had done actually, and you'll find the answer fairly similar in terms of all three of the books, is that I had done some research on the top basically 12 languages in North America, but really researched 10 because English and French would be the first two. It was also important to me to include an indigenous language.
Oh.
So each of the books will include the grandparent. I chose the Cree language for the grandparents. So in that case, it will be Cookum and Mosham.
Oh, Cookum and Mosham? Is that correct pronunciation? And the Cree is an Indian language?
It's an indigenous language, one of the many that are here in North America. And it was personal for me, too, because I have a friend who is indigenous, and her boy calls the grandmother a Cookum.
Cookum.
So I wanted to make sure that went into the book.
As long as you're not an African cannibal society, it's probably okay to use that name. But otherwise, it sounds like a command.
Indigenous society is very matrilineal.
A cannibal society there in Africa, wherever it is, I don't know. There might just not be any, or maybe there is. I don't know. But I hope they're eating well. That's all I'm saying. Maybe not. But no, I can see you're in a cannibal community and you're like, hey, what happened to Grandma? Oh, we cooked her. Why? You called her. You told us to. Anyway, what do you call your grandparents? What do you hope the kids gather from this book? What do you? I think Lily is the character in it. If you want to tell us a little bit more about her.
I chose each of the books in order of because I have 5 grandchildren. So you'll find their names throughout, but the main character in each one of them is represented by the first 3. So Lily is my 3rd grandchild. And the idea, I did quite a lot of research by interviewing grandparents when I chose the particular storyline. And I was thinking about, when do young children spend the most time with their grandchild? And it would be normally during a summer break, or it would be when the school environment has a professional development day of some sort and there's no childcare that's pre-planned. You would often get that phone call as the grandparent, can you look after the kids while they're on their professional development day? So then you have to think about, what are we going to do with the children today? Because having them they're not going to sit in front of the television or in front of their iPad, at least I hope not, and certainly not till when they come to spend time with this grandmother. So my favorite thing to do is to take them to the park, and I'm that grandmother that's actually on the monkey bars and going down the slides with them. It's an experiential day. It's not an observation day. So for me, so I will go to the local park with the kids, and usually they'll go in the wagon. So you'll see when you read through the story, you can see that that's exactly what I would be doing. So,
just stay away from that hot slide that the sun's been hitting.
And bring the towel, because it may have rained the night before and they're soaking wet. So you got to be prepared. So we'll often go down to the park, and there are children from around the whole community that would be at the park at the same time, often with other grandparents. And so that's when children will start to hear another name being called. So when I was with Lily at the park, I heard one of the other little boys calling his grandparent Deda. And right away, I would recognize that is from the Serbian community, because you'll know from book number 2 that my grandson's name is Miloš, and it's because they're Serbian, and he called his grandfather Deda. So I just perked up right away. Oh, They must be Croatian or Serbian from the Balkans. So I'm very aware and keep myself attuned to the different languages and words that are used for grandparents. So I think it's important that the kids learn about other cultures and recognize that it's a learning opportunity. Everything is a learning opportunity. It's not just about having fun. But the other thing that I did is when I started doing the research for the grandparents, because as I said, I had no point of reference for grandparents other than what I would do myself, because I never had any that were alive while I was around. I started asking everyone, what do you do? What favorite memory do you have of your grandparents? What do you like to do? And what I noticed was that it always centered around food. So the answer would always be, we bake something in particular, or we would make pasta, or we would do whatever. So then I started thinking about, everything centered around food. That might be another book separately. So what is it that I want to do with this? And then it occurred to me, the reason that everybody has those points of reference is because I was asking the wrong people. I was asking people of my age bracket. And so in the days of now, we have all these processed foods. And you have microwaves, and you have air fryers, and other ways of cooking and preparing food in a very quick way. So, of course, food prep was because the grandmother was probably needing to get all of those things done in order for the meal at dinner time. And that it was just a practical thing that I got to watch you as well, so you might as well get in there hands-on with me. So then I started saying, okay, I'm not asking the right generation of kids. So I started actually asking the next generation down. And that's when I started getting the different answers about, my favorite memory of being with my grandmother was playing games. So I thought this needs to be about spending time with your grandchildren, not just what they call you. That's part of it, but it expands into some different activities. So when we were putting the book together, I said, I'd like there to be a coloring page at the back of the book so that there's another activity. So if you go to the park with your grandchild in the morning, you're doing something else in the afternoon. So what's your favorite thing to do? Whether it's going to get ice cream, it's going to a movie, it's going back to Nana and Papa's, or whatever name your Papa or Yanu or Nana or Nona, and going to their house, and what are you going to be doing in the rest of the day? So it was to give ideas as well to grandparents on different activities that they can enjoy and explore doing with their grandchildren, and thinking about it in a more conscious way.
I love that. You mentioned food and people remembering that about my grandparents. My grandmother was a wonderful, loving woman and just a beautiful matriarch. And she really taught me about femininity and just it's probably the greatest woman I've ever known in my whole life. And she would cook for you. And we come from a species of where breaking bread among strangers and friends and relatives, it was always a social thing. At least it used to be. And so my grandmother, she would, what do you want? What do you want to eat? And she kind of had her standard of some sandwiches and some scrambled eggs. She always had sandwich meat, and she made great scrambled eggs in old cast iron pans. Whenever she cooked, she would say, come in the kitchen and talk to me while I make you some food. And so you'd sit in the kitchen as a young boy, a young girl, and you would sit there and she would talk to you. And you talk to her because she was going to feed you, and she'd be like, how's your day? And 9 times out of 10, when you ask kids how the day was, they're just like, fine, go to the room. But she had this way of, I'm going to make you some food, and you're going to tell me your stories and what you've been up to. And so you would interact with her. You would talk to her. You'd sit there at the dinner table or in her kitchen, and she would whip up food. And you just, there was something about it where you just always knew it was made with love. That was a secret ingredient. She was there talking to you. She cared. What do you want? I'll make you anything you want. And you knew she had eggs and lunch meat and whatever else she might have been working on for dinner or something. But she would cook it for you. And then you would talk to her. You would interact with her. you'd have a conversation you wouldn't even have with your parents with her. That's how she was. We'd walk to church together, and then she'd play piano. She was a great pianist, and she would play piano and have me sit next to her on the piano and do that. So the memories that I have of my grandparents are really wonderful, at least on that side of my parents. Let's put it that way. The other side of the parents, not so good. But it gave me, the beautiful part was it gave me these blueprints of loving, wonderful people, and sometimes not so wonderful loving people, manipulative, evil, lots of emotional problems. And it gave me these two blueprints that I could look at as a child on top of my parents and go, how do people relate to each other? How do people experience each other? Why are some people different than others? And having that love, that food, we used to gather around the table as a huge family at the holidays, and we'd have 3 or 4 families there, and then my father and my the patriarch and the matriarch, my grandmother, and just had these huge spreads of food. And I really don't do that anymore. I don't know, maybe my family's different, but it's unfortunate. I miss that. I miss that eating together and breaking bread together as a family.
Families are smaller now, generally. If you have siblings, you may have none. You're an only child.
Yeah.
And that's, so you might have, from the next generation, there might be 3, and somebody decides not to have children, and then the others only have 1, or somebody has 2. But rarely do you find any more 3 and 4 and 5 children. And that changes things very much in terms of the dynamic. And again, with all of the processed foods and fast foods, we don't spend as much time in that same way. And so there are other ways to spend time with your children or grandchildren. That's
true. That's true. I took mine down to the adoption clinic, spent a couple hours there with them the other day, and boy, I wish them the best. Anyway, what do you call your mommy? Is your second book, I believe, and this is a 3-part series, correct?
It is, yes.
Give us an overview of that book.
That book is really designed for very early readers. It was main character is our first grandchild, Grace, and she had just started junior kindergarten, her first experiences of going to school. And so I thought this was a really good place as well, that it's usually moms that do pick up the children from school. And that's going to be where their first exposure is to language. And it's in what the children are going to call their mommy when they're picked up. Because the first, hi, mommy, and whatever name, whether it's mama or ma or nene, whatever word that you're going to be using, and it will be very natural for the child, who will flip from English to their home language. And again, it's that initial exposure to different cultures and languages and becoming more cognizant of it. In our society as well, my other concern is really around acceptance. Immigration is very much a part of our world in different countries. Whether you're in North America or you're in the UK, you are going to experience a great deal of immigration. And therefore, the exposure to many different cultures is something that you're visually going to see, and you're going to hear it on a daily basis. And so it's about hearing that language, and one of the first words you're probably going to learn, it's usually dada, but because it's easier, depending on what your name is for the person, as to what the first word out of a child's mouth is going to be, whether it's mommy or daddy. But it's the very first exposure to language. So it made sense that it would be, what do you call your mommy? And being really cognizant and aware of the other languages. So again, I did research the top languages so that it's representative of what you would really hear. So I didn't use uncommon languages.
Yeah.
It was English and French and Spanish, and I chose Mandarin over Cantonese, just when I researched in terms of which language was more prevalent to be spoken, and it came out Mandarin. Same with looking at the South Asian community. It was Punjabi versus Urdu or Hindi or Gujarati. So I chose Punjabi because it's more prevalent in what a child in my area is going to hear.
See, I told my kids they have to refer to me in kind of the King's English context of whatever. So they have to refer to me as High Lord and King God of Gracious Superior. That's what they have to refer to me as.
His Majesty.
His Majesty, yeah. Thank you. I knew I was leaving something off there. Thank you. Thank you for reminding me. His Majesty. They also have to do the curtsy and bow. So whether they're boys or girls, they have to do both. So. Boys curtsy. I don't know. Don't you have to address the curtsy? I don't know. Anyway, but this is really good. What do you call your daddy? Now, can I give this to girlfriends, or is that not the way this works?
Not really the audience that I was targeting for at all.
All right.
What do you call your daddy? Of course, it falls within the theme: the mummy, the daddy, the grandparents. Yeah. But my grandson is the main character, the second grandchild, and the first grandson. And his name, he has a cultural name, it's Miloš.
Oh.
And so being able to see also cultural name within the book, that was something else that I really took the time to research when it was both for what do you call your mommy and what do you call your daddy, is I was looking for in the book, I looked up, what are the top 10 girls' names in each of the countries? And then I chose one of those. So that it's potentially going to, number one, it's a cultural name, but it will be one of the more popular ones. So I did the same with the second book, What Do You Call Your Daddy? Only not all of the children are going to be male. They are a mix, unlike in book number 1, where it's all female names, just the way I wrote it. And then when I got to the second one, What Do You Call Your Daddy? It's a mixture. The names will be culturally sensitive as well.
Yeah. You know, it's important to know these because, like I say, I got really confused when I was growing up. They just called them grandma, grandpa. But over the years, I'll meet people like Nana. They call their grandparents Nana. Or sometimes I've heard some really weird things where I'm like, what? And they're like, oh, yeah, that's short for grandma. And it's always some sort of loving connotation. And I was confused because what do you call them? That's not this. The proper name is grandma. But there's not a proper name. People can do whatever they want all around the world in different cultures and people. So I think this is good. It exposes children about all these different variations. That way,
the idea as well for book number 2 was that I researched what the curriculum was in grade 1. And so certainly geography and sociology, cultural sensitivity is where they're introduced to it in grade 1. One of the other themes is modes of transportation. So my first granddaughter, her experience with school has been really positive, and she loves school and she loves learning. My grandson, however, is not welcoming the school environment in the same way. Not embracing it, let's put it that way. And that's perfectly fine. His favorite time is the time he spends outside of school, whether it's in sports activities or in this case with the book is riding on the lawn tractor with his tata, because that's the name that he has for his daddy. And so part of it was even within our own nuclear family, you start bringing in different cultures once your children marry and they marry someone from a different culture, and how are you going to assimilate that into your home environment? So
now the third book in the series, we're going to get into some more details after this, but the third book in the series is, I believe we want to talk about, I think I lost track of it, there we go. We want to talk about, let's see, What Do You Call Your Daddy? And so we've got the mommy, we've got the daddy book, we've got everything all inclusive there. And then many of the books you wrote were written with a lesson in mind. What messages do you want to send to young readers?
The main perspective of the books, the underlying lesson is about that we all live in the same community, but we're different, we're unique. And that is about acceptance. There's too much hatred or unacceptance, or people use the word tolerance for people from different cultures. And those words are not appropriate. It is about acceptance. We are who we are. We accept people for who they are, and we celebrate our differences, whether that is in the color of our skin, the language that we speak, the words that we use to call our parents, our loved ones.
Oh. What got you into running to write? What got you into writing, and when did you kind of feel you had a knack for it?
I still don't know whether I have a knack for it or not, but there's certainly the interest has been there for a very, very long time. I was thinking back that I think I wrote my first book, which would probably have been a couple of thousand words anyway, easily. It wasn't like a short story of a page and a half, 250 words, double spaced, full scap, like we used to write when I was in school. It was probably about 50 pages single spaced. And that was when I was in grade 5. And I had quite the imagination. I was always reading books and didn't watch television really as a child. It wasn't allowed in our household. I just immersed myself in books, and I really hope that children today enjoy books the way that I have always done so. So the writing end of it was getting into some creativity. My first book was about UFOs and extraterrestrial and aliens, and meeting them and them immersing into our society. And so I remember doing that. Of course, that was a long time ago. But then you become an adult and life gets in the way. And the only writing I would ever do at that point in time was any reports that I had to submit. So I got very good at being concise and factual. So it's really nice to just put that aside and just let the creative side come out a little bit. But what was unique about it is, and the challenge is writing to the reading level that you want to write to.
What's the target that you have for these books?
This would be ages 4 to 8.
4 to 8. And why do you feel it's important that children's books are there for children, but also parents or grandparents reading to children and interacting with them and teaching them reading instead of just drooling out the side of their face looking at a phone screen?
As you mentioned yourself, one of your best memories is of your grandmother saying, "Come and sit here while I make your lunch," and the time that there's activity that's involved. So the focus isn't on sitting and talking in the same way. It becomes a little bit more natural for conversation to flow. And there's nothing like, at the end of the day, sitting at the dinner table as a family, which I know a lot of people get away from. It's in front of the television, or it's pulling a stool up to a bar and everybody's doing their own thing, scrolling on their phones. So I'm hoping that people take a step back, take the time to read. It's very important to learn that skill set very early, and to recognize if there's any troubles in learning how to read, because it will follow them for the rest of their life. Nothing to me is more important than that. And what's better than an enjoyable book? And if there's a lesson that's in there that means an opportunity to follow up with conversation, then it's wonderful. Communication is so important.
Yeah, and you learn so much more with a book. You have to use your imagination a little bit. You have to animate the characters in your head, and you learn about the characters and stuff. Where a lot of movies, a lot of stuff that people are going to consume on screens and iPads and stuff like that, it plays out the story for them. And so there's not a lot of call to imagination because it's presented for you. But the great thing about reading books is you get to get that imagination juices going, and children are so great at that age where the world seems like it has endless potential, and just you can do whatever you want. You can imagine whatever you want. When we get older, we get a bit jaded, and we're just like, yeah, you can imagine whatever you want, kid, but we got the IRS and bills to pay, and debt and credit cards and student loans.
Yeah, absolutely. Life gets in the way.
It certainly does. Now, one of the other questions I had for you was, do you see more books coming out in this series?
In this series, with the multicultural theme specifically, no. I do have several ideas of other books that I would like to write, but I think at some point you move along. One of the next book that I was looking at writing was to do with, and the working title is Who's in Your Tree?
Ah.
And it's about the way family makeup is, whether you have one parent or two parents or sets of grandparents because of remarriages and your children, my children, and our children. But it was also to include things like, as you jokingly mentioned about taking your children down for adoption, see how they make out. That was to include being a foster child and being adopted, and just including all those. And when you were growing up, I know certainly for me, there was a level of respect that you had for adults, and people that you called aunt and uncle were not blood relatives. They were just, or the loving expression of kissing cousins has gone away. But it's, they say you can choose your friends, you can't choose your family. That depends on how you define family.
Oh. So there's a way out of this.
So there's always a way out of this, a bright side to everything. So that's one of the ideas. But moving then back to the multicultural theme, the other thought process is to start writing books for younger children as well, educating them more specifically on some of the cultural holidays. So whether you're talking about Eid Mubarak, or whether you're talking about Ramadan, or any of the other days that other cultures celebrate and why they celebrate those days, the Diwali. So we'll see.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see. I think that would make a great book, and different things like this to help kids understand the simplicity of the world and how it works and how they can interact with it are really important. How did you? What's your writing standard that you use? Do you write an hour a day, or try and write what are your habits that you use to get these books written?
My writing style is that I do it in my head first. Before I ever commit anything to paper, so that the outline is already there. So I spent quite a bit of time, as you can imagine, because when I talked about some of the research that I've done, is the outline was already there in my head, and then I started honing it from there in terms of, because you can spin off into different areas of what you thought you were going to write in the first element, and then it expands. Such as when I started looking at the grade 1 curriculum and looking at the geocultural requirements of the curriculum, but it also, one of the things was modes of transportation was an important element in grade 1 curriculum. So I made sure that when I wrote the second book, What Do You Call Your Daddy, because I'm focusing on things outside of school, modes of transportation, whether that's taking the school bus home, or Milos on the tractor with his dad, or whether you're being driven to school by your parents in their car, whether you're riding your bike. These are all fun things to do, but they're also modes of transportation, and flying in an airplane. So that was incorporated into the storyline while still talking about what do you call your parent, what do you call your dad, what do you call
Yeah. These are really interesting things in learning and growing, for adapting for young people and getting them familiar with the world and how it works, and also the diversity of the world, how it works. That's what I love about it. Why did you choose self-publishing versus traditional publishing?
When I started looking at the two different styles, the self-publishing versus traditional, it is very clear that only 1% to 2% of authors ever get published in the traditional format. So if you really want to have a book out there, then self-publishing, you're more or less in the driver's seat.
It does give you more control and copyright control too. A lot of people don't realize after you publish a book with a traditional publisher, if there's anything you want to change, it's nearly impossible to do because they own part of the copyright too. And they're just usually like, no, we edited it. It's stuck the way it is. And you get a lot more control. If you want to go back and change some, I've seen people that they had an A and B side to the book, and they decided they wanted the B in the front and the A in the back. They wanted to flip the way the book was laid out. They couldn't do that because it was the publisher. No, we're not doing that. Let's just leave it the way it is. You should have done that in the first place in that editing. And so, yeah, it's hard. Even a lot of some of the authors we talk to, they don't even get to choose their book cover. And I'm like, you have to look at that book cover and sign that book for the rest of your life. You better like the cover. Because everyone's going to be asking you to sign it. And you're just like, there's that cover that I hate. Yeah. That's make sure you like your cover, folks. So what key message might you like to send to aspiring authors?
There is a lot of information that's available on the internet in terms of what it's like to get involved in the different aspects of writing and publishing. And once you start down that rabbit hole, it's everywhere. And there are many different publishers out there. They will reach out to you. If you make queries, there's cookies on sites. You end up with everything. So I think that the main message for anyone that's looking to self-publish versus the traditional format, given that a traditional format is only going to give you access, so you got a 1 to 2% chance of being published and accepted. You're guaranteed when you're the one putting the money that's up front. But no matter what, you have to look at your cost-benefit analysis, because publishers will approach you to upsell in terms of marketing packages. That's what they're in the business to do. What is it that you're hoping for to get out of your book? Is success for you just putting it on Amazon.ca and self-publishing and maybe selling 250 copies because all your friends and family are taking pity on you, whether they like the book or not, they're buying it just to support you? Or whether you are going to do more with it and get it out there. What is it that you really want to accomplish with your book? And at the end of the day, you can put out a lot of money and end up with very little. It comes down to yourself in terms of what else are you going to do? So my analogy for anybody who's looking to be an author is think about people that you know or admire that have been very successful even in the music industry. And you start to hear about their life story and their early days of starving artist and what they had to do to say somebody who's breaking out into the music industry who now plays in every pub that's in their neighborhood and gets another opportunity for another bigger audience at a larger pub than the neighborhood one. And they do that for years sometimes before they really get the sense of success, the sense of self, where they want to go with their music, where they get discovered. Writing a book, I don't see that as being really any different. What are you doing? Because if you are just simply relying on everyone else to buy your book, you're going to sell that 250 copies to your friends and family, and that's where it's going to end.
Yeah. You've got to promote it. You got to get it out there. You can build the greatest product on earth. I've learned this over business in many years. You can build the greatest product on earth, but if no one knows about it, no one buys it. And I've seen people do that. They go, well, I built the greatest app. I built the greatest product ever. And people just adopt to it because it's so great. No, Apple still had to tell people about the iPhone and sell it and market it and all that good stuff. It's something you have to do. Anything more maybe I should have asked you that we should know about on the books and what you're writing about and stuff before we go out?
I certainly would love to hear some feedback from people in terms of, again, your family are all very positive for you and they're going to tell you it's the greatest thing since toast. But at the end of it, I'd like to hear that from other people in terms of what you liked about it, what you really enjoyed. One of the things that I didn't mention about book number 2 is, that's being What Do You Call Your Daddy, is at the storyline in that book has to do with the young boy Milos looking at the world through maps on a tablet. So when I was doing my research on that, I found that in North America, 80% of school-age children will have a tablet and access to one in their home, which means that 20% will not. So I asked the publishers to put a map, fold-out map, into the back of the book so that if children don't have access to the tablet in the same way to follow along the way the story goes, that they would be able to go to the back of the book, look at the map, find out where your ancestors come from. That was an important part for me to make accessible, the accessibility of it within the book.
That's really good. Most people can't even find their own country on a map these days. I think I've heard that. You ask them, hey, where's North America? And they point to, I don't know, the North Pole or something. Which it is, right? It's at the North Pole? No,
maybe one day.
See, I don't even know where I'm at. Thank you very much, Eileen, for coming on the show. This has been wonderful to have you, and I'm glad you're writing these books to help people navigate diversity and also all the different names that are out there in the world, because I remember the first time I heard some weird names for grandparents and parents, and I was like, what the hell's going on over there? And it's just funny. People have their own flavors and different things, and that's probably important to learn in life.
Absolutely.
So, Eileen, as we go out, give people your final pitch out and .coms, websites, emails, wherever you want people to find you on the interwebs.
The books are available on Amazon.ca for Canada and .com for in the United States. I also find that the books are available in a number of different independent bookstores and hopefully more to come. The website is almost available. I think certainly for the US, I can purchase it now. The challenge was a little bit more with the Canadians in terms of the Canadian dollar, but I'm sure we'll have that sorted out momentarily, and that would be under Eileen E.J. Walker. And the reason that I put the initials in the middle is because there's more than one Eileen Walker, and I'm not that musician or sadly not someone with the PhD. I am just Eileen E.J. Walker.
All right. Eileen, thank you very much. It's been wonderful to have you on the show.
Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you, and thanks, Monis, for tuning in. Order per book. We let off with the first book. What do you call your grandparents? You can find it wherever fine books are sold, and a link on the Chris Voss Show. Thanks, Monis, for tuning in. Go to goodreads.com/Chris Voss, LinkedIn.com/Chris Voss, Chris Voss 1 on the TikTokity, and all those crazy places on the internet. Be good to each other. Stay safe. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the most amazing, intelligent podcast ever made to improve your brain and your life. Warning, consuming too much of the Chris Voss Show podcast can lead to people thinking you're smarter, younger, and irresistible sexy. Consume in regularly moderated amounts. Consult a doctor for any resulting brain bleed.
All right, great show.